Oh no.
Okay,
Awesome. I
cool.
think we
Cool.
have everyone.
Do we have
Cool.
everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. This is duct tape together because of interest.
Oh
Let's
no.
get it going. And I think
We
we should
just we
start.
just lost we just lost Harsha. Can you bring him back in?
Oh, okay. Wait, hold on. Okay, I tried to bring him back to the speakers.
Okay.
Hey,
Yeah. Okay.
here you are.
Okay. Cool.
All right. I think we should get going. This is going to be a fun episode where we melt down Clubhouse, maybe literally. And first, we need to play some music.
Live from San Francisco and here on Clubhouse, it's the Good Time Show, bringing you today in technology. And now your hosts, Arti and Sriram.
Okay, let's get started. Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome to tonight's episode of Good Time Show. This is a show that Sriram and I do pretty much every night. We've been doing this about 5 days a week on average. And we generally try to get some interesting guests. We talk about tech, culture, TV shows, movies. Tonight, we'll be talking about cricket. But we've been doing this for fun, and it's just been like doing really well. It's we've gotten a lot of comments and feedback. We're trying to like incorporate as much feedback and questions. Keep them coming. I'm RTR at Twitter, and Sriram is Sriram K. And I'm particularly excited about tonight's show because for a lot of us, for both Sriram and I, we grew up cricket. For everyone who's joining here, especially folks who are like joining us from India, this is basically a religion for us, and we've spent like years just growing up on the stuff. So for us, this is a very, very special kind of episode, and we've been waiting to do this for a very long time. So thank you for everyone who like had the time to make it happen. For folks who are staying up on the East Coast, especially who are like staying up very late, thank you for doing this. And I wanted to say, because we have both Preeti and Ashwin here who are also from Chennai. Sriram and I are from Chennai as well. Vanakkam to all the folks who are Tamil speaking here.
இது நம்ம தமிழ்ல பண்ண போறோமா இங்கிலீஷ்ல பண்ண போறோமா தமிழா இங்கிலீஷா சொல்லு
somebody here, somebody tweeted today saying West Mambalam has finally arrived on Clubhouse, which like totally cracked me up. It was awesome. So
Nungambakkam for life.
మీరందరూ తమిళ్లో మాట్లాడితే నేను తెలుగులో మాట్లాడతానండి.
So I'm very, very excited to do this. And tonight, we're going to talk about everything cricket, a lot of things to cover with all the folks here. And, there is also like as an extension of cricket, everything else that's like come up with the social media, digital content creation, everything else. So with that, I'll kick it off to Sriram to introduce the guest.
Yep. First of all, thank you, everybody. I think just given the unprecedented amount of interest, we're melting down Clubhouse. So again, thank you for the patience. We have some amazing guests. Before that, I want to shout out to a couple of really special people at YouTube who got the YouTube stream for this working, so that everybody here, especially folks who don't have an iPhone, could listen in. So Vishal Kumar, Christine Oslin, if you're listening, thank you so much for making this all work on YouTube too. All right, let's go to the guests. I would say, first off, I want to introduce Satyen Gajwani. Satyen's a dear friend. He's the vice chairman of Times Internet. Over the last 8 years, he's built one of the largest Indian digital media services across news, sports, music. Very active in the cricket world because they actually own CricBuzz and Willow, which is how pretty much every Indian outside India actually gets to watch cricket. And I was also working on building Major League Cricket in the US. So Satyen, thank you so much for coming. Welcome.
Thank you, Sriram. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Okay. Next up is I don't even know how to introduce Harsha, because for me, he's the voice of Indian cricket. Pretty much any memory I have around childhood, the happiest ones and the ones where we all been in tears around cricket have involved his voice. Harsha Bogle is kind of world renowned for being a leading cricket commentator and writer. And pretty much every Indian has an emotional memory tied to listening to him. So Harsha, it's such a delight. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's good to be on a show where the promoters of the show casually drop names like Elon and Zuck and whatever. So it's good to be there.
Well, they were just a warm-up packs, right? They were just like small potatoes. compared to
I-
who we have tonight. They were just warm-up act.
I'm interested. You mentioned the tragedy. I suspect it comes out of the Sachin dismissal in the Pakistan test in '99, where I allowed myself to say, "Oh dear," when he got out.
Oh my gosh, I remember. Was it Sunil Joshi on the other end? Like I remember when he skied that ball, and that was just tragedy. Yes.
Intro, Shriram. Back to intro.
Sorry. Okay, we'll get a lot more cricket. Okay, and now I want to introduce a very, very special couple. First up we have Preeti Ashwin. Who helps manage, I would say, all things Ashwin Inc. She helps run their cricket coaching academy, Gen Next, and she's a trustee in the Ashwin Foundation, and somebody I kind of got to know the last few days and followed for a while on social media. Just an amazing, amazing person, and kind of really helped put this all together. So, Preeti, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi. I'm happy to be in a room with my husband finally, though it's a bit virtual.
And last but definitely not least, he might be the man of the moment. Probably one of the most recognized sports people in the world, definitely in India. Ravichandran Ashwin. He needs no introduction to anybody who's Indian or follows cricket. But here's some stats for people who are interested. He's the fastest Indian bowler to reach 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350 wicket marks. He has won ICC Cricketer of the Year. He's currently the highest ranked spinner in Test cricket and the highest ranked Test bowler for India. If you've been following any Indian cricket, recently, you can't miss him, because he's pretty much made it all happen. And also, he has an amazing social media presence on YouTube, which I really want to get into. But Ashwin, it's such a delight. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My introduction generally is a thank you, and I'm happy to be here because I'm not as blessed as Harsha is. Every time Harsha introduces himself, it's basically like a moment from cricket, and there is a tragedy, there is a happiness around it, and unfortunately, I'm not blessed to introduce myself like that. But thank you, Sriram. I'm happy being here.
That's awesome. Hey,
The,
folks,
the
welcome.
sledge came early. The sledge came early. He's just come back from Australia.
Oh, there's going to be a lot of sledging here tonight, people.
Yeah. So I think I wanted to kick it off with Ashwin. Just first question, just so you know, this is like all of it is just conversational. Shriram and I are notoriously bad at preparation. We don't prep. We just talk. And so feel free to ask each other questions. Just take it casually. But I think for Ashwin, for you, I think a lot of us want to know this, and we all follow you on YouTube and listen to your content. But you grew up in Chennai. Tell us your story from starting from Chennai, getting into league cricket, state, IPL, national team, all of that. Just your roots and getting started into cricket.
Look, I mean, it's been a long time actually. For cricketers, it's very different. Maybe like for most sportsmen, it's a little different to how normal people run their lives, because for us, we start at a very young age. We are already into 30 years of our professional service when we are 35 or 36. So it's quite a weird world for us. For me, I go back to maybe 1995, 94. I was one of the most famous under 10 street cricketers in Chennai. I used to play a lot of underarm cricket, and even now, one facet of my life or one part of life I miss the most is when I go back home and I feel empty at 4 o'clock in the evening. For me, getting out at 4 o'clock was something that my father, mother, grandfather, everybody prepared me for. My day was literally empty until 4 p.m. in the evening, because all my neighborhood children used to come back from school, and it is a great opportunity, to one person brings the bat, one person brings the ball, another person brings a stump, and most often than not, the stump happens to be something that's made, a chalk piece drawn on the wall or something. So for me, basically, I'm a cricket lover who went on to become a cricketer, and everything about cricket is love for me. It is not about a profession. It's not about what the game brought. Game brought me, because the game bought me most things, fame, money, whatever it has given me is just incidental. It's not something I aspired or I wanted from the game. So I'm deeply indebted to the game, and for me, the purpose of life is the game. So like Aarti just said, I don't have to really prepare to be real. So yet another opportunity to talk about the game, because I want to be real, and it's something that comes naturally to me.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. And by the way, you mentioned tennis ball cricket. I want to get into it because I was listening to some of your stories, and you have some amazing stories, including people threatening to break your fingers if you play tennis ball cricket. Which I'll get to. We'll get to that later. I want to get to Harsha. Harsha, it feels like pretty much everybody, definitely for me, everybody listening, we've all grown up listening to you, commentate across all the tragedies and all the amazing moments. But could you tell how you got started? Because I think you got started on radio. But could you tell how you got started doing commentary?
Well, first of all, I relate so much to what Ashwin says about tennis ball cricket because we all played it. It's just that he was that much better and went on to make a career. We all did that. I mean, the guy who had the bat was always the most important guy. You had to put linseed oil on your bat and wait. And we had all these theories about whether it should be kept in a can of linseed oil or you should poke holes into it to let the oil go through. Then someone came up with capillary effect, and we said, oh, maybe that is what it is. So we all grew through that. And one of the things I'm most delighted with Ashwin about is that he's not lost those roots because I think that's important. But I was playing the senior division in Hyderabad, and my dad used to come and watch me play. And it was amazing, the coincidence. He would come to watch in a nice, well-ironed, crisp kurta pajama, and I would get out. And I remember Arshad Ayub, who was our captain that time, went on to play 12-13 test matches. And he said, "Aapke walid sahab ka aana zaruri hai. उन्होंने वहां से आए आप इधर से गायब." Meaning, as soon as he comes, you get out. And that evening when I came back, I found in our house, we had a little front lawn, not a lawn, but a little open space. And there were two chairs. So when I opened the gate, there were two chairs there. And my father was an academic. He could only have been an academic. And he said, I think you've played as much cricket as you can, but why don't you speak about it? But Hyderabad, was a great place. I know a lot of you are from Chennai. Hyderabad and Yuvavani was a great place. They used to give kids a break. I got a break in commentary at the age of 19, for example. I mean, I was 19, not yet 20 when I got a break. So one thing led to the other. And next thing I knew was I was doing a test match at 23, I think. I did my first test match at 23 on Doordarshan. I don't ever want to hear a recording of that. So, and then one thing led to the other. But really it was when TWI and ESPN came to India that it could become a profession.
How did you, you went to IIM Ahmedabad, right? How did you switch from, what would have been a very classic business path to commentating?
I'll tell you honestly, Sadhan, you employ a lot of people and you pay them decent salaries. But my starting salary out of IIM Ahmedabad was 1,900 rupees a month. Anita was 2,300. Between the two of us, we were all right. 3-4 years later, it was 5,000 rupees. So I said, "Chalo, kuch karke dekhenge." In Hyderabad, we used to say, "Chalo, karke dekhenge. Miya, zyada kya hota, nahi hoinga." So, one thing just led to the other. But I think a lot of us, my generation, and I'm by some distance the oldest here, a lot of us benefited enormously through being in the right place at the right time. When India was changing dramatically in the early mid-90s, when the country was opening up, some of us were just there. It was what some people say about being in the US late 60s, early 70s, when the big boom was starting to happen. So a lot of us moved with the tide. Some of it was our making, some of it was we went with the tide. It was a great time. And our generation, Satyan, from management school, has been the most blessed generation because we have seen starting salaries of 1,900 and we've seen lives. I don't think any generation in India will ever see that kind of financial change that we did. So we are indebted to, in many ways, that the country opened up as we were seeking career, as we were growing in our careers.
For the Americans on this call, that's about $30 a month coming out of what is the top sort of management MBA school in India.
It's not a lot of money in any currency.
It wasn't. In those days, Hindustan Lever used to give, Unilever used to give 2,000, 2,200 rupees starting salary. So it was just that much.
So I want to get back to Ashwin, and actually, a little bit later, we're going to get into the Ashwin and Preeti story, which I think is really fascinating. But Ashwin, I was just, going through all of your YouTube videos and listening to your story, and it's just amazing to hear the story of your dad driving you to all these matches, and how we kind of just came up, under 12, under 14. A lot of people who are watching this or listening to this are going to be really young, under 12, under 14. Could you just tell them a story of what your story was like? And for a youngster watching this, and you work with a lot of youngsters, what kind of path should they expect? Because playing for India is obviously the dream for everybody.
Look, I think I know where you came from, but I cannot skip but not take off from where Harsha left. Harsha spoke about this thing where his father came for the game. He asked him to speak about the game rather than play the game. But Harsha is one of the greatest storytellers that the game has seen, right? So
Yeah.
for me, these storytellers are people who are very dangerous, and I say dangerous with a very, very not necessarily a very sarcastic note, but in a serious way. Because the first time I heard storytellers speak as a cricketer in India or anywhere in the world, when you hear commentary or when you hear people say something about the game, you take them literally, right? Even when we go back to our mythologies like Ramayana and Mahabharata and all that, there are so many things that you look at in fascination and say, okay, hey, wow, this guy did this. But then you turn around and say, hey, you know what? This guy shouldn't have done this. But the essence of storytelling is for us to learn from it and apply in our lives and not take it literally. I will give you an example as to why I say that, because my father and I share a very special relationship. It goes without saying, but we also share a very interesting relationship. So the first time my dad used to take me for these under 10 games and all that, I used to be a medium fast bowler and then used to bat. And I very often bowled big in swingers or out swingers and used to give a lot of wides away. And control was a bit of a problem. So I used to, the normal thing that every coach or every parent would tell you is hold the ball cross seam and the ball will go straight and you can control it. So as I was doing these cross seam stuff and all that, one day on the bike when we were going for a game, my dad brought up about this very interesting personality in cricket called John Lever. I don't know how many of you have heard of John Lever. John Lever is famous for obviously his bowling skills and all that, some great performances, which Harsha can reiterate. But he was famously known for using Vaseline on the ball, right? My father said, if you use Vaseline on the ball, you can, do what John Lever did. You can pick up so many wickets. He didn't ask me to use the Vaseline. He said, this is how John Lever did it. And Bishan Singh Bedi was one of those persons who, found out and all that sort of stuff. So the immediate reaction to that from me was I tried and picked up a Vaseline, dabba from my house or try and bought it from the medical shop. And I took it to the game the next day or practice the next day and I applied it on the ball. And the first ball I bowled was a beamer. So my learning was if you used Vaseline on the ball slips out of the hand. And how the hell did John Lever use it wisely and get those wickets? So my learning from that day, from whatever people taught you or whatever storytellers told you, was to learn from it and either get wiser or commit the mistake they committed. So likewise, a lot of storytelling in life can be very dangerous. We have to take what we want and apply them, and not take what we don't want and apply them sensibly and be successful. So just about the relationship with my dad and how I was brought up was a classic case of a 90s kid growing up in the house, right? My father and mother used to have a hanging ball in the center of the house, and I used to keep knocking it around. And there was this whole old Godrej fridge, which I still remember. That was my favorite destination for a pull shot. I used to pull it onto the fridge, and initially my mom was like, you're spoiling the fridge. My granddad was like, you know what, do you know the value of money and all that? And eventually people realized that it was of no avail, and they accepted that the fridge was my pull shot, sort of a marker. So one of those days we were playing a league game. I was about 11, 12 years old, and my dad used to, put me on the back of a Hero Honda bike, and the kit bag used to be on the petrol tank. We used to go to the game. 9:30 was the game. And we reported by 8 o'clock. And about 7 o'clock, I was ready with all my whites and all that. And I was playing on the rope ball. My dad was walking busily here and there. He was getting his clothes on. He was getting food ready for me and all that. My mom was in the kitchen. As he was walking between rooms, I happened to play the pull shot. I hit the fridge I clearly remember still, the ball hit the fridge. As I swiveled, the bat went and hit my dad's forehead. It split open the very instant, and he was bleeding profusely. I mean, it was just, you can see blood all over the place. I still live in the same house. We have a hospital 10 steps away. I was down on the floor. My mom was in panic. My granddad was addressing to my dad, and my dad just got up. As a matter of fact, wore his slippers, went to the hospital, stitched himself up. And in 15 minutes, we were on the bike to the game. I went to the game. I got a 50, got out. The game finished at 4:30, and he took me, back on the bike. He didn't say a word. We haven't spoken a word since the incidents in the morning. He took me to a bakery, got me some cake and all that. We were having the cake, and that's when he spoke for the first time. He said, You know why I didn't speak through the day? I asked him why. Because in no way was I angry or was I doing anything. It must be matter of fact to you. Whatever happens in life must just be matter of fact when it comes in front of the game. And that's exactly how you should play the game for the rest of your life. Not worry or bother about what happens around you and just lock yourself in your own zone. Because for a fact, I believe if this didn't affect you entirely, you must have gone on to make 100. So whatever happens, even if the roof just falls down, you must go out there and play the game the way you need to play it. Don't forget, don't worry about anybody, anyone, nothing matters in the world. So this sort of a learning, I don't think my father necessarily wanted to speak all these things on purpose, but it just came out. And that's been the biggest learning and takeaway from my childhood relationship with my dad.
Right.
That was a beautiful story. That was
Amazing.
beautiful. Ashwin, I have to say, I have so many fond memories, playing tennis ball cricket. I think pretty much any Indian kid does. If I remember correctly, from what I've read, you used to be more of a batsman back then than a bowler. How did that transition happen from playing tennis ball cricket, being a batsman, to then, actually, playing like, with like, playing like, I guess, proper cricket? Like, how did this transition happen?
You're asking me questions for which I'll answer forever
I
because
love it.
We have
look,
nothing to do. This is all we're going to do tonight.
no, look, I mean, there is this very famous saying that goes like, when the student is ready, the guru arrives, right? And I'm sure a lot of people here would have heard that. But for me, every person in life needs to be eligible of the moment a great advice comes or a great guru comes by the way and helps you out. So I firmly believe in karma, not necessarily to mean spiritual ways of life or anything. But you need to be able to, like in Three Idiots, Amir Khan says, excellence ke piche mat bhago. Excellence ke liye, you need to be able to you need to be eligible for success or excellence, which is a line that I really love. So for me, every day at practice was like a laboratory. I used to experiment every single day. It's not just my professional life that's gone about like that. Right from the day I was 8 years old, if you gave me a ball and bat, the first thing I will do is to try and be very uncomfortable the way I practiced. You have to be. I believe every human being from inside knows what makes them uncomfortable and what makes them comfortable. So, if, for example, somebody outside knows that sledging me or talking to me or saying nasty things gets to me, you can be rest assured that the person will do that to get on top of me. So for me, every day at practice was a reality check. It was like looking at the mirror. So if I went and played a game, and I believed, and if I believed that I was uncomfortable at something, I might have got 100, a very good 100. But if I felt uncomfortable at one particular instance in the game, that will give me sleepless nights, because I believe that is a moment, that is a particular facet of my game that people can pick up and attack me at the next instance. So I played for under 17 India as a batsman, which Harsha will know very well. And Venkatesh Prasad happened to be my coach for the under 17 Indian team. I was the only opening batsman in the entire squad, and I went into bat against Nepal at number 6 in that particular game at Chinnaswamy Stadium. I went up to Venkatesh Prasad and I asked him, I'm the only opening batsman and you got somebody else to open the batting, and now both of them have gone on to make runs. Why did you make me open the batting? And I can look at it very differently, right? I can look at Venkatesh Prasad and say, he didn't like me that I didn't open the batting. He liked someone else, so he made them open the batting, or he has an agenda against me, or anything. All these are things that you tell yourself such that your heart feels very comfortable and you stay within your comfort zone. But I didn't want to be in that comfort zone. I went and asked him, and he gave me a very, very realistic reply, which sort of made me uncomfortable. He said, I saw you bat in the nets, and the moment a short ball was bowled at you, I felt like you were not good at handling it. And when you didn't handle it well, I realized to be an opening bat, you must be able to handle the short ball really well, a bouncer really well. You don't let go of it, or nor do you pull it. You just hang your bat up there. So I was not very comfortable. I went back thinking about it. I went back home. I went to the NCA that very year. I worked very hard at getting better at the short ball. And I also realized something, that is one facet of the game that made me very, very uncomfortable. And if I cannot play a short ball really, really well, it makes sure that it really gives an opinion to the others that I cannot be a very, very good opening batsman. And it also told me that I cannot be a very, very good opening batsman. That day, I started to work extensively on playing the short ball, which made sure that I was an impulsive puller and also made sure that it sharpened the other skills of my game, which was to start bowling off spin more regularly. I gave up my opening batting after being an opening batsman for under 17 India. At the under 19 level, I started bowling a lot more overs, and things just turned around. And I also realized that playing tennis ball cricket, I had so many more tricks up my armory that one fine day after I played for my country as an under 17 India opening bat, I went back home and I told my dad, you know what, if at all I play for India, I'll play for India as a spinner who can bat and not as a batsman who can go on to bowl. And he was shocked. The entire world doomed down on him. But eventually that is what caught up, because I don't lie to myself. I stay real and I work on what the reality of life is. And that's probably part and parcel of my success.
Wow. Okay, Ashwin, I have to say, I love your answers to each of my questions. It's not what I expect. So I absolutely love it. Okay, this might be the hardest question yet. One of the best parts about doing this show is Aarti and we do it together, and we're obviously a couple, and we kind of bring the energy. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this with you is that so that we can talk to Preeti and you together. I'm kind of doing a bunch of research on the both of you. It's amazing that you both went to Padma Sheshadri, because my house was right next to Padma Sheshadri growing up in Chennai. I want to hear the Preeti and Ashwin story, growing up, going to school, how you got together, and then I think I have a bunch of questions about just kind of being a family and kind of handling the all the pressures come with cricket. But tell us your story. How did you meet? How did you go?
We want to ask Preeti this though, just to be clear.
Let's forget Ashwin. Ashwin doesn't matter. Preeti, you talk to us.
No, so we met in school. We went to the same school till 10th grade. And I met him, I think, probably in class 8. So it was typical, like he was a boy who was never in class. And I was a girl who was doing pretty well in class, that sort of a thing. But we weren't friends at that point in time. Like our friends who were we were in touch with from school, they still go on.
We were enemies. We were enemies, actually.
Yeah. So we just didn't get along. There's quite the story that both of us couldn't stand each other, that sort of a thing. But a lot of our friends do come back. The ones who we're in touch with from high school, they do come back and say, "Oh, we saw this happening 10 years ago," sort of a thing. But so that's that. And then he left school in class 11, and then we weren't in touch. And then I met him again when I was handling an account for one of the IPL teams that he was playing with. And that's when we started reconnecting again, and we saw each other like as grown-up, responsible, civil adults. And yeah, that's how. So we started talking. He was really busy, so there was no big dating scene that was in our lives, because it's just like how it is now. The only time I've been in a room, with him in the last many weeks is now. So it was pretty much long distance even then. And so finally he just took me, we went on a drive, and then he took me to a cricket ground very typically. And then he proposed, and he said, this is what I'm thinking about. And then he called my dad, and he spoke to my dad. So I was putting in a transfer. I was moving cities. I was doing a lot of things at that point in time. But you've heard him now, right, Sriram? So you know how persuasive he could be. So he sort of, before I said yes, he'd asked my folks, and, he'd put everything in place. So I took some time, and then, then the rest is history, I think. Yeah.
I actually want to ask both of you this, because, we can talk cricket, and I want to talk a lot more cricket too, but I'm also kind of interested in the behind the scenes, which is, how is it to kind of be a family and bring up children where, one of you, it's interesting because Ashwin, and look at you, you have a job where every day about 1 billion people have an opinion on what you did, right? We don't have any, we don't deal with that pressure. You do. And I'm kind of curious, how is it to be a family? How is it to kind of handle that, especially, with all the travel, how has it been for the both of you? And what would people listening today, what would they probably not understand or expect from how your lives have been for the last 10 years?
No, look, I think with respect to this question, Preeti is much better equipped to answer it. But just to sort of respond to whatever she happened to say,
What? You're going back
I
there?
I love
yeah,
this.
I am because it's kind of time I put my foot down. In the last 10 years, I've never put my foot down, but I
All of us
feel
are
like
now
it's
part of your
time.
marriage, by the way. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Won't work,
she
Ash.
just
Won't work. Won't work.
no. I'm saying I'm not going back home for the next 20 days, so I can live with this and then probably ease it off and go back home. But look, there are certain parts of that particular response that she gave that really needs an answer or needs a question from my side. She spoke about me being very persuasive and talking to her folks before she had decided. I just don't understand the that world that she came from, because even now I don't. Because in cricket, right, you toss up the coin, it comes your way, you say you bat or bowl. And likewise in life, everything has only two sides. There's either white or black, and that's how I understand it. There can be no grace.
There
And
is.
I know a lot of people who might ask me this question: why aren't there no grays? Because I believe people must have opinions. Because if people do not have opinions, it means they are in there just to go along with the tide. You either say yes or you say no. I can live with a no, but I can't. I can live with a yes, but I can't live with, maybe can we give it some time? Because I don't have time. I just have borrowed some time to live on this planet for a while, and I don't know what tomorrow will look like. So I didn't call her father, and I called her father and said, you know what, your daughter seems to be very, very, confused. She wants it, but she doesn't want it. Are you the one? Are you the one that's directing her, or are you also like that? And he said, no, no, of course not. I will speak to her. She better get a grip on her life, and that's exactly how things work. And even in school, our relationship was very, very funny. I liked her. She didn't like me.
There's
She
a
was like,
14-year-old us, okay? What is the point?
yeah, correct. It's not even 14. It's
This is
probably
amazing.
it's probably a little earlier. And I remember every
Yeah,
single thing. And she
right.
said we connected a little later. For about the next 10 years, I wished her on every single birthday of hers. She didn't know when my birthday was for the next 10 years. If you can't like a person who likes you with no expectations, then I don't know what to say. I rest my case.
So this is like a constant thing, right? So especially like the identity of our marriage revolves around when is one of us gonna give in on this whole black and white thing. I'm sure like I keep saying there is a gray everywhere, right? So if he's saying like if someone is going from a yes to a no, or from a no to a yes, the whole process of that change is the gray for me. But for Ashan, it's not like that. It's just black and white in terms of opinions and things like that. But yeah, we're working it out.
I love this. I love this. It's like this is fantastic content. So Preeti, I want to ask you, kind of get back to what I was
Oh
asking
yeah, the
about,
question. Yeah.
which is just life as a family in when you are probably two of the most well-known people in the country of billion people, and everybody has an opinion on what Ashwin does every single day.
Yeah. So initially, when I was married, I did not think about what was going to come, and I also think while social media was there, it wasn't this toxic or this. It wasn't all over the place like how it is at this point in time. So when I got married, there was a lot of like the newspapers, and then he just got in. I think the man of the series in his test debut at that point in time. So there was a lot of attention, but I was sort of completely immersed in dealing with my wedding and sort of getting done with it and like leaving the place. So I was in that zone for a bit of time, and then I realized that privacy as such is very, very difficult to get, because we couldn't really step out, and everything had to change. Like we really had to watch where we were going, what we were saying, that sort of a thing. And then I kind of got used to it. Then came the children. So with children, it got a lot more challenging, because like I'm often asked, right, you do put up pictures of your children, and why do you do that if there is a danger to social media? So I just say it isn't my children's faces are anyway going to come out. It's not as if I can hide them in, and it's not going to happen. If we're doing it, it's a conscious choice as parents. So there is a lot of learning that's happened along the way. We found ways to sort of cut out the noise. Um, and if you don't bring it into the bedroom, like if you don't let what outsiders say affect you, I think it is something that you can definitely isolate yourself from. It's not because he plays cricket for a living. He doesn't, get paid because people have opinions about him. He gets paid, or he lives because he plays well. He doesn't play well, whatever. So at the end of the day, if that's what you're trying to work on, it is quite easy to cut out the noise. Though there are like occasions when it does get to you, it gets to your children, it gets to you as a family. But it is a learning process. I'm getting conditioned to it.
Right. This is, I think, sorry, I think for me, this is pretty much like what for Shriram and I, we have a kid now, we have a 2-year-old daughter, and
Yeah.
it's pretty much been tech our entire lives, right? And it's been like pre-pandemic, at least, this was kind of this question on our minds on like, what does it mean to actually be a parent when we have these like crazy, insane jobs and hours? But, ours is like totally
Right.
the league compared to like what you guys do and like
Arti,
Right.
how do you guys manage the paparazzi chasing you and Sriram around all around the Bay Area?
So, we have a couple of floors in this house, right? So this is like the 1 hour in the day where Shriram and I don't sit in the same room. So it's kind of, we are in the same room, but we are not because we have to be on our phones. And so there is no paparazzi, there is nothing. We're just like, there is very low key stuff.
Yeah, and
Uh,
also like Harsha, Ashwin, and Preeti might be a little bit more famous than we are.
exactly.
Okay, so yeah.
Just
So,
a bit.
it's good.
I'm feeling a bit left out with all these children in the room having 2-year-old children and 4-year-old children.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things I wanted to ask, like I learned a lot about, just what's happening in cricket. Like we've been in the US for over a decade now, and we feel like we've kind of like we can't go to like cricket stadiums. Like over here, people are like, nobody knows what cricket is unless you're like talking to other Indians here, right? So, we learned a lot from Kuti story. And so I wanted to ask about the origin of that. Like it's such a big hit now, and we learn a lot. We watch it all the time. Tell us about like how it started. What is what is the concept behind it, and where it goes from here?
Look, a few weeks, no, probably a week ago, or probably before. I mean, I can't exactly remember the timelines. But Harsha and I were having a chat, right? And Harsha can speak for this. And for me, it is more about trying to connect with the audience. And for a very large part of my life, I realized that whatever I did and whatever I spoke or however I played was not who I was. People were perceiving me to be whoever I was not. So that was the origin of starting a YouTube channel and trying to communicate with people and try and make sure that I'm putting the love out there of the game. And essentially, storytellers are supposed to, bring about the joy and different facets of the game. And for me, playing the game and also being able to bring out the perspective of what I thought about the game in a very positive manner, especially during these lockdowns and all that, was the basis of starting it. And sometimes I believed, even if you look at a 2020 game, right? And I think all these things will change over a period of time. Right now, when you play T20 cricket, somebody scores runs, somebody picks up wickets, and usually the person picking up the wickets or the person scoring the runs tend to get the man of the match. And
Right.
end of story. And this is how it goes. But for me, I realized that T20 cricket is far from that. A particular moment. If I have to give you an example of talking about T20 cricket, it personally happened to me a long time back in 2010. I had just burst into the scene. I was getting recognition. I was getting to be a part of the, whole IPL bandwagon. And we were playing the final against Mumbai at the DY Patil Stadium. I got no wickets in the game. Doug Bollinger got wickets. Chennai Super Kings won the competition for the first time. And I bowled a maiden over in the game for the first, it was the first maiden over that I had bowled. And at the end of the game, everybody was, talking about that maiden over, talking about how important it was and all that. But eventually, moments were given to people who picked up wickets in terms of volume or people who were getting those runs. So for me, these things were not being spoken about enough in the game. And every single aspect of the game, every single ball becomes an event. So I wanted people to understand the game from a larger perspective. A deeper understanding was what was dictated, because I was shooting for a brand in Pune once, and there was this brand manager who was, along with the shooting group, they were trying to get that shoot organized and get every single particular arc done properly. And we were sitting as the set was getting ready at the stadium, and Suddenly this lady just pops out and says, it's so much fun to watch the IPL. You guys are all doing such a wonderful job. How do you generally, who, she was like basically asking me how it gets directed. She
Mm-hmm.
she had no clue that it was an organic content which was being directed from the outside. Like people in the middle are playing, but there are storytellers who magnify it or under amplify it sometimes and put it out to the audience, and there are another set of people who market it as if it's like a cinema event or a web series or something. So
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked, I was taken aback that people think every aspect of the game is actually being staged. It was unreal. It was an unreal eye opening for me, and I also wanted to correct things that from that perspective to make people understand that every single minute moment in a game
Mm-hmm.
matters, and it culminates into a larger result or a larger goal, which was also another reason why I wanted to bring it and also showcase some of those people who work behind the scenes about how it is to watch. Because coaches and people who are playing, once you bat, once you bowl, and if you're done, if you're sitting outside, you've got zero control in the game. But you
Mm-hmm.
put so much work from a coach's perspective that you cannot stay detached from it. So I wanted to bring it out, and I thought every single one of those people's perspective and eye lines and their vision towards the game needs to be showcased. And it was just a very, an honest attempt in terms of bringing it out. And I was surprised myself to see the kind of attention it received.
I love that. It's kind of like professional slang. Okay, Harsha, I think we need to hear some of your stories. And one of the things, I was so excited for having you come on the show today was, you've seen like multiple generations of, Indian cricket. And both as a viewer, as a fan, but also up in the commentary box and providing analysis. I'm just curious about when you look at the modern game for say the last 5 years. What has surprised you the most from the game we watched, watching the 90s with Sachin and Rahul and Kumble and Javagal and all those people, and maybe one or two of your favorite moments doing commentary, right? Anything is fair game.
Yeah, I'll quickly pick up, if you don't mind, on this engrossing conversation that Ashwin and Preeti were having, because it
Yes.
reminded me a lot.
Oh no.
No, it reminded me a lot of it reminded a lot of
Let's
Anita
go
and
back to
myself.
marriage talk.
No, we were on campus together as well, and I mean,
Oh, right, right, right.
she was doing well. I was struggling, and I had these images floating in my mind of me being sent back because I did not get enough marks. And the look on my father's face, if that happened, I spent my whole semester. So I didn't actually have time to get that friendship to grow. And I mean, when it happened, I was a bit taken aback. I'm saying, this woman wants to say yes to me. And that's how it started. So it was the other way around, actually, from what Ashwin and Preeti were saying. But I remember a story many years ago. And this was, I remember telling Rahul this. In those days, the media and the players, we used to have decent bonds. We used to have a meal together sometimes. I mean, I know things about that generation that I've never spoken about, because there was a trust in that generation with Rahul and Saurav and Anil and Sachin and Sri and all these other people. And I remember telling Rahul, never marry a fan, because you must have somebody at home who will tell you you're going wrong. And I noticed that in my house. I noticed that with Ashwin and Preeti very, very strongly. I don't think Preeti will react like a fan, but yeah, to answer your question, I think the biggest change that's come about, Sriram, in T20 is to educate people that what they're seeing in T20 cricket is not what they have got accustomed to seeing over the years, and they should search for that in this new game. When you're watching T20 cricket and you're watching like the Ashwin and the Vihari stand, or you're watching the Pujara and the Pant stand, then go back and understand what makes Test cricket one of the greatest human activities in life, not just greatest sport, one of the great human activities in life. But when you're watching T20, don't come from that point of view, because as Ashwin said, one maiden over can be critical, three dot balls can be critical. Someone who comes and makes 12, say 15 in eight balls at one point can be critical. So forget what you know, and I think to be able to watch cricket through a new lens, to appreciate completely different skills, because I mean, scoring, if you have three balls left and 10 to win, there's a lot of pressure too. So understanding that it is really a different game played with largely similar rules, I think that's been the biggest challenge for a lot of us. Apart from, of course, explaining what DRS and umpires call is, but that's we'll do that another day. And I've also seen changes in the approach of players. I remember in the 90s, when India used to go to places like Australia, used to go to places like South Africa, we just assumed that India had no chance. And a couple of the players said, we actually didn't believe we had a chance. And now what I see with the team in 2018 and 2020, I would have loved them to have won in South Africa and England in 2018 as well, is a completely different atmosphere. It's about giving back. It's about standing up to the opposition, but largely it's about self-belief. I try and relate it to a different India, and sometimes people laugh at me thinking I'm very old. But a lot of us grew up insecure, underconfident, thinking everything in the West is better than everything here, because that's what our parents had been indoctrinated into. So I love, in the last few years, I love watching this younger generation just so full of self-confidence, so full of being able to express that. And to me, that's been the most beautiful thing that's happened in the last few years.
Harsha, I would say, I connect to this, like when we were growing up, when Tendulkar got out, or whenever the team toured and you was playing at, the WACA or GABA, you pretty much knew you had like no shot. But now, just watching the last series, it's just so heartening as somebody from India. And you're right, it speaks, I think, a new, bold, young India. Okay, I need to ask you a story though. Favorite moment or moments from that you've been able to do commentary on?
Oh, I'm so happy. Most of the time, people ask me for mistakes. People ask me for embarrassing moments, and there have been so many. Look, it's like a batsman. When a batsman plays and misses, effectively he's made a mistake. Or if you drag a ball short, effectively the bowler. So it's glad to know, and I think one of the problems is we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously. We are only telling the story of the game. We are not the players. The game is always very easy from 100 meters away. It's even easier from 5,000 kilometers away. But there was some, and since this is a Chennai group, I enjoyed that moment in Chennai very much. When the Chennai crowd gave a standing ovation to Pakistan, won't happen again. Wasim told me afterwards that they wouldn't have gone on a victory lap anywhere other than in Chennai. And I hope that attitude stays, because I believe you must support your side till the very end, and then even if briefly applaud the winner. And I thought that is what Chennai did that day. But the one that's gone down in public understanding, public memory, is the Sachin retirement story. When I wasn't supposed to be doing commentary that day, but a young producer said, you know him better than anyone else in that commentary box. I think you should be there. And we all got taken in with the emotion of the retirement, because Sachin wasn't just a player. Sachin was a symbol of hope to a country that had sort of grown up through the 80s and had started enjoying the 90s and the turn of the century. And as I said, he was an emotion, he was a habit. So I enjoyed doing that little bit. I enjoyed doing the ends, but most often you'll be surprised, when I come back home, I have no recollection of what I've said in a commentary box. I have no recollection of the stories that I've told, because they're all in the moment and they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, both those moments, I think anybody who's Indian like remembers that. Both the Pakistan match, especially when Sachin got out and skied it, I think mid-off or something, and that feeling we had in our stomachs. But I think Sachin's retirement speech, I remember my mom, who's over 8 years old now, she came and watched TV, and I know, she actually started crying when watching that. I think I had tears in my eyes. Everybody, you just felt that so deeply in a way which I think people who are not Indian may not understand. And I remember that. So, Harsha, thank you so much I know you were such a big part of that, and there's nobody but you would have been a part of that. So, thank you so much for all of that. We all remember that moment so well. Okay, so I want to kind of bring it back to Ashwin and cricket a little bit. Ashwin, in terms of giving back, I know you've been, you have your foundation, and you've been really involved with helping youngsters get into cricket, especially people who may not have the resources themselves to get into cricket. Could you tell us a little bit about your work there? Because I know this is close to your heart.
Look, for me, every day is a chance to learn, and I'm not saying it just for the line of it. And I just purely enjoy learning from whatever I do, whatever I see, whoever talks to me, and that's just the way I'm made. And it gives me so much happiness. For the first time, this is probably the second time. Sorry, not the first time. I'm correcting myself. A story of a little boy that came home every single day. So like I started off this conversation about playing cricket in the gullies, underarm, and all that sort of stuff. Preeti will be very aware of this boy, but I'm not giving the name out. I used to live in this as a joint family, right? My aunt and my dad were, we lived in the same compound. We grew up together, and for a very for probably 4 5 years we lived in the same property until we sort of built our new house right now. So this boy, we had a shared compound and a shared gate. So every single day we used to start playing at 4 o'clock, and this was even after I'd played for India for a very long time. Till I was 28, 29, I used to continue playing gully cricket, playing inside my house on the concrete surface with my friends and all that. And then they all found their own ways and means of living life. So we've sort of got away from each other now, looking after our professions. But this I used to have like a small concrete space where I practiced, and we used to play underarm tennis ball cricket in the same area. I can't even imagine how small that place was, and about 20 of us used to play together. And this boy used to come and he wanted to play this tennis ball underarm cricket with us. And as we were playing, I suddenly realized that all of these guys, it'll be so much fun to be, socially connecting over the game, that we got and played cricket ball games on the weekend. But none of my friends from the neighborhood were as good as I was to play cricket ball stuff. So I started coaching them, like, started giving them, my cricket kit bags and pads and whatnot. I used to throw at them and started, coaching them, which is when I realized that to coach or to teach someone is a completely new art, and I had to equip myself. So what I would do is I used to go on YouTube and tried and found ways and means by which I can educate them, teach them. Everybody had a faulty technique, so I had to find mechanisms and ways and means to get things across to them and all that sort of stuff. And our first experience of playing a cricket ball game was all these guys went and played, and they were 23 for 7 because they didn't know how to call for running between the wickets. All they'd done was just bat and bowl inside my small concrete area. And this boy was like a perennial substitute. He used to be a substitute all the time. He was about 14, 15-year-old, and he had these huge spectacles. He in no way looked like someone who could even be a cricketer in the wildest of my dreams. But one thing was constant. If we started playing at 4 in the evening, he would be at the gate by 2:30. And so we had to eventually let him inside the house. He will just walk around the concrete surface, sometimes sweep it, sometimes throw balls on his own and all that. And he used to beg for a game of cricket. He used to ask if he can get one opportunity in all those weekend games that we were playing. And one of my friends who I happened to, make him the captain and all that, he used to keep avoiding him. And one day he got really brash and he challenged this guy and said, you've been playing for the last year or so. I have not seen you do anything of any purpose. Why should I not play ahead of you? And he just posted that question, and he was taken aback. So we decided to challenge him. He said, I will give 10 catches for you. With all these big spectacles, we believe that he can't take even half of those catches. But to our surprise, the first 4 catches he took, diving, juggling, and all that. And I was the person hitting these catches, and my friend asked, you need to go faster. Please, I can't afford to play him the weekend. So I hit the 5th catch a little quicker. It hit his hand and it bounced and ricocheted to the next house. That's how our compounds were built. And this guy, without even flinching once, started chasing the ball to pick up the ball from the next house. And as we were following him, we saw that there was a blood trail. There was like a pool of blood that trailed to the next house, which is when we realized that his webbing had been torn. We took him to the hospital, stitched his webbing up, and like in 10 minutes in the hospital, this is a statement he made. Okay, we'll go back and now continue to try and take the catches because I want to play this weekend.
Wow.
And I was thrown back at the sort of resolve he had. So I said, okay, you need to make this guy play this weekend. He said, no, I can't. He might get hit. We might have to answer his parents and all that. But I said, no, just put him at fine leg or deep square leg or wherever it is. And I was surprised. He went on to become the man of the match. He bowled with a new ball, got 4 wickets.
Wow.
He couldn't field the ball. He couldn't stop a ball. He had so many limitations, and yet that resolve and that application of skill that he had watching the game was tremendous. He's not playing the game anymore. He tried to improve his game, wasn't quite good enough. But that particular instance turned the tide, and it just told me, life is more about resolve and what we think of ourselves than what people think about us. It hardly matters. And this has to be, go ahead.
No, Ash, without quite relating to the ending, but the nerdy looking guy in big glasses who was catching every ball that came to him reminded me of another guy many, many years ago who made his school junior team only because he could take catches. wasn't as good with bat or ball, but he could take catches. And all his life, the one thing he could do was catch a cricket ball, even if he couldn't turn his leg breaks. So I was
Was
just
it
remembering
was
the
it
big guy. Yeah.
was it this 23-year-old who went on to become a commentator?
Yes, it was. I could catch a ball and hit the stumps from any angle, even if I couldn't be as good as anything else. But they picked the team depending on who took catches. So there were two guys who I grew up with who were better players than me who didn't make the school junior team because they dropped the catches and I caught them. Anyway.
uh, okay, I want to kind of switch gears and talk about, I would say, like more like very recent kind of changes and things in cricket. Especially, look, the last year has been crazy for pretty much everybody in the world. And I think with professional sports, every sport had to go figure out, well, how do we start playing? What does it mean to play without fans live? What does it mean to keep players safe? And with cricket, there's obviously bio bubble and been playing through that has been such a big part. And I'm curious to get like both Ashwin's take, in terms of how is it as a player going through those protocols. I remember all the stories in Australia about like, who can share elevators and whatnot, but also how is to play without fans. And for Preeti, and also like Harsh as a commentator, like for Preeti, how was it in terms of all the limitations the families had, and also how do you think how was to play in the bio bubble, and what would we as fans not understand about how that felt? Ashwin, maybe you can go first.
Uh, and an international cricketer's life is way too glorified from the outside than what it actually is. For a very long time, I've been saying this, but somehow people will not be able to relate to it because we belong to the privileged class. And staying inside five-star hotels, you're basically like caged birds. You can fly, but not quite. You're basically inside these five-star hotel rooms, having food that you can only have as it's dictated, and you can't really now with all things or people delivering from outside, it's slightly better. But this life of being in bio bubbles is not different for cricketers. It's not new at all, because this is exactly how we live our entire lives. But the only change here is there are lot many more people who have to live our lives. Like for example, your hotel managers, your the match staff, the match officials, all these guys also have to stay inside the bubbles, and they are like caged birds that can't really fly. So we can't say it's the new normal. We can just say it's a redefined old normal for us. The only new thing for us is probably you can't put spit on the you can't put spit on the ball and all that sort of stuff. But playing without crowds, that is a massive loss, I must say, for especially the Indian cricketers, because for the first time when we played without crowds in the IPL, I felt that there was something amiss. The adrenaline rush was amiss. But I also think it helped a lot of cricketers who get, who get jolted by the pressure of having the crowds, just the enormity of the whole stage, the theater. Some of those guys were able to perform better than in the previous seasons, which is something I realized. And also, even in the even of late, when we went to Australia, also in the bio bubbles and all that, there were crowds coming in for the game. So for people who enjoy the crowd, and some people motivate themselves watching people in the theater, for them it can be really, really difficult. But for someone like me, it's totally immaterial. You put three stumps there. Give me a ball and bat. I'm on my own. I'm happy. And on top of that, you're providing me with an opponent, with another 10 teammates and umpires. I'm not complaining.
Harsha, you obviously kind of watching and kind of analyzing and commentary. Do you sense any changes to the games, in terms of how players feel about it and how it has been played out that we may not know?
No, I don't know really, because every player reacts to it very differently. As Ashwin said, because he enjoys the challenge, he enjoyed it. Some other people might not. But the presence of the crowd gives you a buzz. I mean, even for us, I love going out every time I'm doing a match. I go out onto the ground, I stand in the middle, and I just look around to take the atmosphere in, because somehow, I think then that I'm in my job when I get the atmosphere in. And I couldn't go out onto the ground even once, except I think there was 1 or 2 days during the IPL that I was doing the toss. But I could not go out onto the ground even once. So I would get out straight out of the car, go through security, get my temperature done, have people pointing all kinds of things towards me, sit in a commentary box and come back. And to some extent, it took away a little bit from the IPL, because the crowds coming in are a big part of it all. So yeah, it will. But I think the fact that we are getting cricket is such a superior blessing that it's a small price to pay for not having crowds.
Okay, so I want to actually throw to Satyan a little bit because Satyan, I know you worked so much with CricBuzz. You also been working on bringing cricket to the US, which I think is kind of an interesting direction for the future. Me, as somebody who lives in San Francisco, would love to see more of that. Could you just talk to us about, especially cricket in the US, and what you've been doing with CricBuzz and what you see in the future?
Yeah, sure. So, at Times Internet, we've been active in cricket for a while. So we bought CricBuzz in 2014, which is, today it's the largest sort of cricket platform globally. In India, actually, people search the term CricBuzz more than the word cricket now. And I think in 2016, we bought Willow, which is essentially the way that everyone in America watches cricket. The big thing we're working on now is sort of a new project, which is, it's probably the most ambitious project to build cricket in America. And it's everything from the grassroots up. It's a new entity, and we raised money from a bunch of people like Satya Nadella, Shah Rukh Khan, and about 15 or 20 other individuals. But it's everything from academies to the national team. So we're developing dozens of academies across the US for player development. But in parallel, we're actually trying to build out ICC quality cricket stadiums across the country. We have our first stadium in Dallas, Texas, which is actually undergoing construction as we speak right now. And then all of this is really ramping up for us to be able to launch a Major League Cricket tournament, like a world-class T20 tournament, hopefully in 2022 with 6 teams across the major American cities. And we're excited about it because, cricket is the second biggest sport in the world, and the US is the biggest sports market in the world, and it has such a small and frankly an underrepresented presence for so long. And so if we get good at actually building it out and actually building it out from the grassroots up, when actually developing players on the ground in America and whatnot, the ambition is actually to make the US actually become competitive on international cricket and have the national team actually be competitive in the World Cup tournaments that come up ahead as well. So it's a very large, it's like a 20-year initiative, right? It's not one of those things that's going to happen overnight. But our belief has been it won't work if you just launch a league. You really have to develop across every element of the game.
Oh, wow, I love that. I can't wait to go to a game in person. In fact, I can't go to any event in person because it feels like forever since I've been among other people. And I used to be antisocial, now I regret it. Okay, I know we're kind of over time now, so I want to quickly wrap up. And I want to wrap up by asking each one of you a final question. And maybe Harsha, we can start with you. We have like thousands of people listening in on Clubhouse, on YouTube. Do you have any final thoughts for them on cricket, on a post-COVID life, on anything at all before we wrap up? No, not a hard question.
Yeah. No, I just think we need to spread the story of sport in times that are so divisive these days. Everyone seems to be intent on dividing people. I think sport is bringing people together, allowing moments of sadness maybe, but so many more moments of joy. So sport is beautiful. I'd really plead with people, get into sport. You won't regret it. I know I'm preaching to the converted in a sense here on this forum. But I heard Satyan, and I cannot wait for cricket to come to the US. I think it's the next big frontier. I remember going to Canada in the late 90s, and I used to enjoy going there. That was really a small exercise in Toronto in a very small ground. So I'm looking forward to that. If it's anything as interesting as the journey CricBuzz had, and if I could be allowed a little plug there, learning and reaching to people on digital through CricBuzz has been, after all these years, one of the most satisfying things for me. So I hope that the cricket in the US becomes big, but I can see the number of fans here. I don't know how it will work with the time difference, but I do hope it gets there, because you must have new adventures every time. And cricket in the US will be a new adventure, just as T20 cricket was a new adventure, ODI cricket was a new adventure all those years ago. I'll just end with one little thing on Ashwin's Kutti Story programs that I liked, which is that I think he made a conscious effort to reach out to people outside his own. Long before COVID came in, the word bubble was associated with film stars and glamorous people who lived their own life among themselves and thought that the entire world resided in the little bubble that they resided in. And I think by reaching out to people, he has allowed a lot of other people to come in as well, and may always be that way, because a true cricket lover recognizes that there's people outside his own playing fraternity. I've actually first heard the word bubble when Simone, Shane Warne's wife, used it, and she said he lives in a bubble. And I would would like more young cricketers to experience life outside, to admire people from outside their profession, whether they are scientists, whether they're engineers, whether they are doctors, whether they're health workers, but understand that just as they are very good at one game, there are others who are good at that. And that is something I like. And I won't be surprised, Ashwin and Preeti, I'd love you to be able to take this a little further and get people from different forms of society, because you have such a nice base to build on and people will listen to that. So sorry, I got a bit preachy, but yeah, thanks. Sorry. Thanks.
No.
I would
We
say,
love listening to you, Harsha.
I love listening. Harsha is like, following you is so intimidating because, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to follow that. I'm going to sound so dumb. Thank you so much for that. Preeti, I want to throw this to you, right? You have a lot of people listening here today. What message or thought do you have for them before we wrap up?
So I don't know. There's Harsha and Ashwin, so I don't think I have to say anything on the cricket bit. But I loved I'm just going to take off a little bit on what Harsha said. I think sport is beautiful. I'm just a fan who watches something that makes me happy. And if it's going to be such a beautiful unifying force, then I think we should just let that be and take as much happiness as we can from something like that. And Harsha, we will try and work on a lot more Kudi stories. You need to give me tips on how to tell stories better.
Yo, now that I know that your husband drinks proper coffee, then we are friends.
This has become a very Chennai episode. Okay.
Ones are like carrying around French presses. There you go.
I do too, by the way. I carry my own French press and coffee powder with me now. So I would have been very disappointed if Ashwin had one of those.
No, he is.
Ah.
He has a French press on him.
Good. I don't care if the offspring doesn't land, but you can't drink that packet wala coffee.
The place I come from, especially Chennai, it's a shame that I'm carrying a French press. I must be carrying a Chennai press. I hope people soon realize that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's time to rename it.
Yeah. Ashwin, I have a really hard question for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, I don't think questions are hard at all, if you can be here.
All right. Because there's only one thing that every tweet in the last 10 minutes is wanted from you. One update. Do you have a Valimai update for everybody here?
Anyway, look,
seriously though, I would love to hear like a final thought and message for our audience before we wrap.
I think there is a cosmic connect, right? I would have anyway ended the show saying this, and I would have wanted to give this as a parting note, but I'm going to try hard. Harsha wasn't preaching enough, so I'm going to try even harder, one step further. See, look, in India, or if I can only talk about India or the society I live in, but I cannot. I've experienced the other worlds, and I'm lucky enough to have done that. But I have a small issue with the mindset of people being, very box-sided. Like Harsha rightly mentioned, it's very bubble-centric, right? And Harsha, I would like to tell one thing since you're here.
Yeah.
There is no human being in the world that lives in the entire bubble as long as he lives. The bubble does burst, and when the bubble bursts, I just hope you have enough energy in life to recuperate and get on with life and live a very meaningful and purposeful life.
Yeah.
I say this with a proper, very top side view. I'm an engineer. I'll have to say top side, a top view. India is a very movie-centric country, right? It is not a sporting country yet. And when I talk about movies, movies are made with only one purpose, bringing out social issues, trying to teach people, educate people, trying to, give a message across. And that's the only reason movies should be made. If it is made, movies or web series, it can be commercial, all that is fine. Every business needs to make money, but there must be a purpose behind every single movie or every single web series that's shot. Somebody's life being brought out. And unfortunately, even the movies have been made in such a fact, and the movie industry has been made with such a fact that sometimes people get larger than life. People are projected in a larger than life fashion rather than actually showing movie as the centerpiece. Likewise, when I look at cricket, has the game been the centerpiece or the players playing the game been the centerpiece? Unfortunately, I must think that the players playing or the people have been the centerpiece rather than the game itself. So that's one thing I would like and request and want people to do, is to look at the game and learn from the game, and always make sure the game is the centerpiece, because Earth is the centerpiece. We human beings are just a part of it. Likewise, The game is always the centerpiece, and we learn from it and make sure larger than life personalities are there to learn from and not make them the way of your life.
Wow. Okay, I can't top that. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, I want to wrap. This has been amazing. I don't think I can beat that emotional moment from Ashwin. Okay, for everybody. Okay, let me go.
Now
through
you know
secrets.
where I'm stuck, Sriram.
Okay, for everybody listening in, first of all, for thousands of people listening in on Clubhouse and the thousands more on YouTube, everywhere else, thank you so much. We had an amazing blast. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for all the tweets, comments. I know you loved it. Thank you for all the support and all the questions and the Volume update suggestion. Thank you, everybody. And to all of our guests, Aarti, as usual, Satyan for helping make this happen, for everything he's doing around, cricket and digital media. Harsha for, honestly being, a huge part of my childhood and, tied to every emotional memory I have about cricket. It's kind of weird for me to hear his voice now because it feels like my childhood come to life when he's speaking. It's just amazing. So, and you're such a beautiful person, Harsha, and this comes to. So thank you so much, Harsha, for being on the show.
Pleasure.
And also probably, one of our most favorite couples. It's kind of amazing, and I think we can just sense the energy because you're all from Chennai, but you folks are amazing. Preeti, everything that you do and the energy you bring is amazing. And most of all, Ashwin, your exploits in the cricketing field are stuff of legend, but your depth of thought, your understanding of life, it's just amazing. So thank you all so much. And we have a tradition on the show. I think Preeti knows this. We try and pick a song that matches the content or the guest that we have. And I was trying to think of what song should I play given Ashwin showing up. And then yesterday I happened to see, or this morning I happened to see Ashwin's Instagram. So to play this out, this movie is really important because it's one of the first movies to come out after COVID and people can go see in theaters. But to play us out, thank you, everybody. This is Vati coming from Vijay's new movie, Master. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Sriram.
Thank you.
For hosting us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Folks, bye. Good night.